Stop! This video is for entertainment and tutorial purposes only. The character portrayed is fictitious and no identification with actual persons living or dead is intended or should be inferred. Thank you.
Hey, welcome to Select Arcane. This is my third year in a row participating in the Little Rider doll making challenge. If you haven't yet, go see my last year's video, Farah, the very cute casual rider doll. I'll be honest, I really enjoy making dolls. To me, they're actually not that hard to make and a fun small project. The real issue is that I suck at making clothes. And I think you viewers know that because these doll videos are never that popular compared to my other videos on my channel. Nonetheless, here we are with a doll video. The Little Rider doll making challenge is kind of like NaMoPayMo. Make a riding doll in the span of a month. Of course, your doll doesn't actually have to ride, so long as they're somewhat equestrian based. So I already mentioned that my last year's doll was a casual riding doll, and this year it's going to be no different. But my goal is to improve my skills and actually maybe make a decent pair of boots this time. That would be nice. As a base, I'm going to be using this. I believe this is Darla from Casey's Galloping Gals. Compared to the usual Gracie, her skin is a lot lighter and paler, and her facial expression is more intense to say the least. Honestly, the first thoughts that crossed my mind with her were serious dressage rider from Germany or a Karen. And because I'm not making a German dressage rider this round, Karen it is. I am so sorry, but I'm going to dive right into the stereotypes when it comes to riders. Every single person that I have met while riding who wears bright colors like this with darker pants and has those large brimmed English helmets, to me screams a Karen. And they usually end up being kind of nasty. I find most of them use Pirelli, and most of them have a horse that they have no business riding. But I do just want to point out, I'm not talking about anyone specifically, and if you feel that you fit this stereotype, I am definitely not talking about you. But back to the doll. Darla already comes with her head separate from her body, but if you did need to decapitate your doll, all you have to do is fill up a cup with boiling water, stick your doll head first into that water, wait maybe 20 seconds, and then pop the head off. It's that simple. But what I'm going to use that water for is to take off her hair. I dunk her head into the boiling water, swirl it around with a chopstick for maybe 30 seconds, and then I pluck her head out and try to rip out her hair through the neck hole with pliers. These pliers that I have actually lock in place, so I find it a lot easier. Casey's Galloping Gal's hair is rooted perfectly and very thickly, and it is very hard to get out of these dolls' heads. It took 4 separate boils to get all this hair out and took 20 minutes. And look at all this hair left behind! How could all of this have fit on that doll head? After a quick vacuuming, it's on to the face. I pull out my 100% pure acetone, and you can use nail polish remover if you don't have this, but it will take a lot longer and take a lot more effort. I dip a Q-tip and start wiping the face off. I also take this opportunity to clean off any dirt. And once her face looks clean, I immediately take some soap and wash her face. Otherwise, the acetone will sit on her face and start eating away at the vinyl. I leave her on the side to dry, and now it's time to think about the hair. What does a Karen hairstyle look like? I turned to this site called the Trend Spotter, and it gave me a pretty darn good idea. Blonde hair, chunky lowlights, and what appears to be a 2000s emo hairstyle. Long in the front and short in the back. What makes me nervous is that I wanted this haircut when I was about 13. Going into my stash, the only blonde hair I have is this, Goldilocks from Viscose Heaven. It actually came as a sample because I never ordered any blonde hair. And when I went to their website to go actually look to see what they had and maybe order some more, I saw that they were on a break. So ordering is out of the question and I'll have to use this Goldilocks. For the lowlights, I'll be using this Mocha. I think that's the closest I can get. I know, putting new hair on a doll seems really intimidating if you have not done it before. But trust me when I say it is so easy. Thanks to Carrie Ann Parker's tutorial on the Little Rider Doll Making Group's Facebook page, it is like a 5-minute thing. I already covered it in Farah's video, but I'm going to do it again. All you have to do is take an appropriate amount of hair for the look you want. I just measure it to the doll's head and see how far it covers. My Karen cut isn't going to need a lot, so I'm going to snip it off here, and then I'm going to glue it down on one side. I'm using regular cling wrap on my desk taped down, and I glue the end of it with this tacky glue. This stuff is fabulous. It dries clear and it dries relatively quickly. In this case, I'm going to take the mocha and add some chunky lowlights in. And yes, I want it to look cheap and bad. I waited about 20 minutes for it to dry, and then I peeled it off of the cling film. Using scissors, I just snipped off the ends and cleaned it up, and I split the weft in half. So now you have 2 medium-sized hair wefts. Now decide where you want your hair part to be. Do you want it in the middle? Do you want it on the side? In my case, I'm going on the side because, Karen hair. Using the already rooted hairline, I take my exacto knife and split down the middle. This is going to be the entrance for the wefts, so make sure it's big enough. You might need to taper the wefts a little bit, and that's okay. Now stick them in and split them to the side. Take your tacky glue and smooth around the edges of the hairline. Just make sure that the original plugged holes are not going to show in this. Don't add too much glue, otherwise it'll show in the hair. Throughout this whole time, you're probably wondering, why would I just not use the original hair? Why would I use viscose? Well, the original hair I believe is nylon, which is not exactly to scale. It's rooted too thickly to look realistic. Also, nylon feels really dirty after handling it for a while, so viscose is a lot better. It's more in scale, really soft, and it is vegan in case you're worried about that. Once the hair is how I want it, I stick the glue in the neck hole. Smushing it around, I make sure to coat the wefts. Leave her to dry upside down overnight and let the glue set. Now that it's the next day, it's time for a haircut. As much as I love long hair, it has to go. I'm just using regular crafting scissors to chop off the long parts of the hair, and I'm sure there is some better way that I don't know of. I'm following a reference picture off screen of Karen hair so that I know exactly what to cut. And it's a really good thing that I did not go to school for hairdressing because there would be some very unhappy customers. She won't notice if I just, fill in the bald spots with some of her hair trimmings, would she? Now that the hair is done, it's time to work on her face. I cover her hair with a rubber glove and pin it in place. I'm just using a fancy twist tie in the back. Next, I take my unreliable Mr. Super Clear and spray her face to make a blank canvas. While her face dries, I'm going to turn my attention to the clothes. I actually have the perfect combination of a teal top and gray pants. The problem is that they're classic scale and not traditional. Trying them on anyways, the shirt I guess fits, but the pants are a huge nope. But I do have this other Briar doll who has gray pants, but I don't know, the ensemble just kind of looks frumpy. Can I make a better outfit on my own? Well, probably not, but I'm gonna do it anyways. I find the Karens of the equestrian world wear really high-level designer clothes. So I somehow have to make this outfit pretty expensive looking. Where can I get fabric for that? Value Village, of course. If I'm going to make any improvements from last year, it's definitely on the clothes. I've been watching a lot of Delightful and Enchantarium on how to do clothing patterns and actual sewing. Eric also got me this book on how to make pants, which I desperately needed. And I also have this old briar top, so let's see what we can do. First, I'm going to start with the top. I disassembled the entire shirt. Judging by what Delightful and Enchantarium do, they break down the outfit, trace over it, and make a new pattern. That way, instead of starting a pattern from scratch, you at least have a baseline. This is also the exact same shirt as Nadine, by the way, but in green. After disassembling the shirt, I take the pieces and trace them on cardstock paper and then cut out the paper pieces. By the way, this is not a tutorial. I am the last person you should trust with sewing or making doll clothes. After cutting out my fabric according to the pattern, I'm so far happy with where I'm going. Until I find out that my thread does not match and I can either go too blue or too green. But I'm going to go more blue here. Now it's just a matter of trying to put the outfit back together. I go back and forth a lot with Nadine's shirt and the cutout pattern, just trying to make sure that I get the pieces in the right place. And trust me when I say that I made a lot of mistakes and I had to do a lot of seam ripping, redoing a lot of things. At one point I did stuff inside out, the other point I didn't put things inside out when I was supposed to. Then of course seams got lumpy and mismatched and oh, it was absolutely awful. Sometimes my expectations are way too high for myself. Like for example here, I want an LSQ doll, live show quality, because I do want to show this doll. That's what I do, that's what I collect. And when I can't get something that I want to be perfect, I get very frustrated very quickly. Maybe that's why the Namo Pamo video isn't out yet. So even though this shirt took virtually an entire day, when it really shouldn't have, I finally got it to where I was sort of happy, or at least happy enough. Moving over to pants, this is that book that I mentioned that Eric got me. This is Doll Sewing Book Pattern Textbook, Skirts, Pants, 11 cm Doll, Obitsu 11, SD 16 DD Dolls. Whew, that's a mouthful. The makers of this book have a ton of varieties for shirts, pants, skirts, dresses, it doesn't matter. It's really full of knowledge and I would highly recommend it, even if you don't speak Japanese, like I don't. This book also shows exactly where I went wrong with Farrah last year. First things first, I need a pattern, and I don't have any briar pants that are going to work here. Thankfully, this book comes to the rescue and shows me a really easy way to make a doll pattern from common tinfoil. I wrap up the doll like a baked potato, and then I draw the seams on with a Sharpie. This seems really unusual, and I'm not sure how I feel about this, but once I start cutting out the pattern, I start to see where this is going. And I think I did a little bit of a rough job, but I think we're already on the right track. Joining up the pieces, I sew the pants together. Once I have most of the structure in place, I put in the doll body so that I can sew around the figure. I want these pants to be nice and tight so they can be riding pants. I am sewing them inside out so that I can flip them around for a nice clean seam. But before I do flip them, I trim off the excess material on the insides of the legs. The pant pattern that I already made is made for a more wide leg, and I need these to be tight. I also sewed the pants to the shirt in the front and the back. This is specifically to avoid any riding up, any riding down, and I don't want another Farrah butt repeat. I'm actually quite happy with these pants. What do you think? Keeping the momentum going, I'm going to go for the face up instead of the boots. The boots, as we all know, are going to be the worst part of this whole thing, so let's start with the face. First, I prime the face in Mr. Super Clear. And then I start sketching the look that I'm going for with a watercolor pencil. That way, if I make any mistakes, I can just wipe it off. I'm referencing Karen faces off screen so that I get the eyebrows and eyes just right. And once I'm happy with my sketch, I go in with my gouache paints. Gouache is like a half and half between watercolors and acrylics, so that if you make a mistake, you can wipe it off just like watercolors, but it's opaque enough that you can see it and it sticks to the doll. I paint in not only the eye whites, but also the makeup, the irises, the pupils, and the shading. Karen here is going to have blue eyes because I have not painted blue eyes on a doll yet. In case you're wondering, I'm using nail art brushes for this tiny face up. I find they work great for small scale painting. I'm using Mungyo soft pastels for the shading. These pastels are fabulous because they have a lot of pigment and they show up really well as blushing or shading on the doll's face. I find Karens are usually a little bit older, not young girls, so I'm adding a bit of wrinkles and extra shadows to the face. I waffled a bit with how to do the lips, but I colored them in with a bit of pastels for the rosy color, and I added the detail with using a watercolor pencil, but instead of the pencil being directly applied, I used a wet paintbrush and lifted the pigment directly off of the pencil with the brush. What do you think? Do you think that Karen looks like she's calling the barn manager? Last but not least, my arch nemesis, boots. Looking back at last year, I had a really rough time because my fabric was just too thick. I really tried to fudge it, I really did, but it just wasn't working. So I retreated to safer territory after 2 other attempts, and I used epoxy sculpt to make her shoes. It was a nightmare. It did not go over well, and I definitely don't want to repeat that experience. So this year I come armed with a pattern from Lisa's Model Horse DIY. I've known Lisa for quite a few years, and she's actually who I inherited Toronto Live from. She's who taught me model horse showing, model horse judging, and in a way, she's actually my sensei. This pattern legitimately saved my bacon on this doll. You can find it on Lisa's YouTube channel and on her Etsy shop. I'm going to post the link down below. After a few more added details, like buttons and a belt, we're done. What do you think of Karen? I think she's the best doll that I've ever done. She gives me so much more confidence with my clothes making and boot making. I guess boots aren't so scary after all. Huge shout out to Tacky Glue being the MVP of this project. And thank you so much, Lisa Sharp, for that boot pattern. It was a huge lifesaver. If you like this video, please like and subscribe. You can find me on Instagram and Facebook at Select Arcane. Thanks for watching. Bye!